My name is Paul Barrow. Welcome back into Tech Path. Listen, if you guys are brand new to crypto, and by the way, there's a lot of new investors coming into crypto right now. One of the things you're going to need is an exchange, and one of the places to go and check out is Coinbase. Just jump over to coinbase.com. Future of money is here. It's one of the best places out there in terms of businesses and also individuals doing buying and selling of crypto. Very easy to enroll and get started over there at Coinbase. Think of it as an extension of your own bank account. It's very simple. Use our link down below. It's going to get you $200 in crypto to get started and get out there. Listen, we've got Kristin Smith on, who's the CEO of the Blockchain Association today, and we're just going to dive into it with Kristin. How are you?
I'm fantastic, Paul. It's great to be here today.
Listen, we always have Ron Hammond on. We've got some of your team. He's always great, but I'm so happy you had a chance to join us today. And I want to get into a few things here. First, of course, is the Politico report that was just recently published here. Wave of crypto-friendly lawmakers now about to crash Congress. We've been watching this fairly intensely over the last 2 years. We do a lot of videos on what's happening in DC, and of course, covering a lot of the solutions that you guys are going for. When you look at this right now, Kristin, and you consider a lot of the votes that have gone through on many of these bills that have been able to squeeze through the House, some who are being presented over to the Senate, what does it look like right now in terms of how many House seats and senators that we would have to flip to see more potential opportunity in crypto?
Yeah, well, I think as you were just saying, even within the Congress we have today, we have a growing bipartisan group of lawmakers who have voted in favor of crypto legislation. So we have a good start this Congress, but I think next Congress is going to get even better. The Politico report was talking about the Fair Shake Super PAC, which has supported a lot of candidates at the primary stage, now in the general election. And it's pretty unprecedented for an industry to do something like this, but this has all been done in an incredibly transparent way. I always like to point out I don't control the Fair Shake Super PAC. That is a separate organization. But I certainly feel like I'm going to be the beneficiary of it, because for those of us who are on the ground in Washington working to talk to policymakers, I think when we show up in January, we're going to find a lot better reception than we have over the past couple of years. And so I really do feel like we've turned the corner as an industry. We've caught the attention of Washington. They're taking us seriously, and people want to work with us to make sure that we get the right kind of regulatory outcomes that we need.
Well, I think the key here has been, you look at some of the lawmakers, a lot of which I feel like are, you think about Richie Torres and you see kind of the performance of what we've seen out of Patrick McHenry and Tom Emmer and many others, but you start to see this shift of a bipartisan approach toward this particular topic. And it's one of the few that has been able to do that. Of course, that all has kind of been paved the way. I was looking back at the report here, cryptocurrency interest have spent on elections, what they've spent on elections in the majority of states this year. And you can see, obviously, Ohio right now, we spent a lot up there with Sherrod Brown, and you look at some of these like Texas and all up and down the coast here. So a lot of the programs really supporting these super PACs really supporting the idea around crypto as a whole. And if you look at the states, obviously with Florida, where we are based, we've got some pro lawmakers for crypto. Are there any areas in the country right now that you are most concerned about from a legislative standpoint that really needs some support, maybe from our listeners and viewers, to just go out and reach out to people?
Yeah, no, listen, I think any congressional district or any of the states where there's a Senate race, I think it's important to reach out to candidates and let them know what's going on. If you go to standwithcrypto.org, that's an organization that helps facilitate individuals to reach out to their policymakers and their candidates, and they have a scorecard system where you can see if somebody is pro-crypto or not. And so I don't think there's any one state in particular that's most important. I do think, if you sort of look at the map, Ohio is one where the Super PAC has put a big investment, and Senator Brown is currently the chairman of the Senate Banking Committee, and And, he has been, less than favorable to the industry. And so I think bringing in, Bernie Moreno, who is running against Sherrod Brown, would be a very interesting change in Ohio because, he has been a blockchain entrepreneur himself. And so to be able to swap out somebody who's been hostile with somebody who understands the space would be very helpful. But we really are seeing on both sides of the aisle and all across the country from, Florida all the way over to Alaska and Hawaii, we're seeing a lot of interest. And I think that's going to mean that we'll have just a much more educated set of lawmakers. This is obviously a complicated space. It's a complicated technology. It's not something you can just go have one meeting on and people understand. It
Right.
takes, years of conversations to get to the point where people feel educated. And so we want to continue working with Congress to help them understand what the issues are, what the gaps are in the laws today, and why, Congress needs to act to fill in, not to give the industry a pass, but to actually put in a framework that makes sense for the industry and make consumers and institutional investors feel like this is a safe place where they can come participate in the markets.
Both candidates, of course, for the presidency, Trump has come out pretty consistent with his plan of not only accepting crypto as a country, but starting to get very aggressive on getting pro-crypto positions. Kamala Harris, her position has been a little bit more loose, though she has started to mention blockchain and crypto in some of the guidance that she's starting to apply. If you look at the two candidates right now, I'm not asking you to select one, but if you think which one has a stronger position for any voter out there that is maybe a single issue voter on crypto alone, do you feel that either candidate has an edge right now?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's safe to say President Trump clearly has a much more sophisticated and in-depth policy position than Harris at this time. It doesn't mean Harris isn't going to get there, but Trump has been engaging with individuals and executives and CEOs in the industry for several years now. And this spring, when he really started to talk about it publicly, I think he was very surprised by the reception he got. People were
Right.
very excited. He went down to Bitcoin Nashville and spoke there, and he talked about firing Gary Gensler on day one, and he got such a strong response that he said it again because he had never seen anybody so upset at a federal regulator before. And so, I think it's very clear that he is all in. He wants to keep this industry here. Harris came to the race obviously very late in the game, right? She's probably got one of the shortest presidential campaigns in history, if not the shortest. And so it's a little bit challenging for her to have in-depth policy positions on so many issues in such a truncated amount of time. So it's understandable that she has not yet gotten into specifics, but I do think it's very encouraging that she's started dipping her toe in the water, right? She's mentioned it in a couple policy documents. She's mentioned it in some speeches that, this is something that is a priority at, a very high level, but that's how it starts, right? Like Trump didn't jump in with a multi-point plan on what to do for the crypto industry on day one. And so I think, we need to give Harris some space and to come up with that. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of in-depth in the next 2 weeks before the election, but I do think, if she does win, that we can continue to work with her. I think most importantly, as you were just talking about, Democrats in Congress, maybe with the exception of Elizabeth Warren, who is now incredibly isolated in her thinking towards crypto, Democrats in Congress want to see this industry thrive, and I don't think that Harris is going to step in the way of that. She may not be her top priority if she wins, but it's certainly, I don't think she's going to be a barrier to getting new legislation passed. And so I really do think in some ways we've already won, right? Like we've caught the attention of key policymakers, and they're willing to engage with the industry and try to figure out how to move forward. And we just need to continue to do that in a thoughtful and constructive way.
We had John Deaton on here just this last week. Obviously, he's in the Senate race right now there in Massachusetts with Senator Warren. Why do you think Senator Warren has been so consistently holding that line and not maybe opening up, even though in the debate, I think it was the second debate, we saw a little bit of a crack in the armor almost as to maybe let crypto in a little bit? What do you think is driving Senator Warren right now?
Yeah, well, listen, I think that she's got to be reevaluating some of the strong stances that she's taken on this. A lot of the comments she's made on crypto have been around environmental issues and then illicit finance, and
Hmm.
it has always been my belief that she's using those as talking points to go after the technology.
Hmm.
That if you look at the way that law enforcement uses blockchains to track down criminals today, it's actually superior to what we see in the
Exactly.
traditional system. So throwing out those arguments, are not genuine. I do think that there is a philosophical difference between Elizabeth Warren and many others in Congress in that she wants the government to have a lot of control over everyday lives. And so, even though she has been critical of the big banks and of big tech, and blockchain networks are our solution to that, she likes the way that the rules are today. She likes that the banks will, go hand over all of the information to the government when asked. She likes that the banks will, not service politically disfavored industries when she puts that out there. And I think that, she even likes, I think, the position where a lot of the big tech companies are in working with the government. And so, what people in the crypto and blockchain industry are doing are building ways to disrupt that level of control. And so I that is my best guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
I've spent a lot of time thinking about this. She doesn't meet with us. We meet with her staff on occasion, and they'll talk about the concerns around illicit finance, et cetera. But those are misinformed and I think a distraction from what's really going on, and it's government control of personal information.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing there is just the idea of freedom. This is something Deet and I have talked about quite a bit in terms of our original stance. I wanted to kind of hear your point. You've got the policy summit coming up in December. You put out a letter to President Trump and also Vice President Harris, regardless of which one wins, the potential of them to maybe show up. Do you think either one of them will show up at the event to speak to the
I mean, I would
contingent?
certainly hope so. Yeah, whoever the next president is, I think that these are issues that the Congress is going to want to deal with, or issues that regulatory agencies are going to be dealing with. And so to have strong leadership from the future president in this space is very important. And I think if whoever wins, or quite frankly, whoever loses, wants to show up, we would gladly welcome them to speak and figure out a path forward. But if they can't join themselves, and we can get a surrogate on their behalf, I think we would be equally excited.
Well, it should be a good showing there. So I'm looking forward to seeing how things kind of transpire there. I want to play a clip for you. This is from the DC FinTech Week, which is actually happening, I
Hmm.
think, today. And there's a couple of clips here I think that are interesting around new investors. Listen to this one right here.
We're seeing a lot of new investors. When we talk about the new investors, they are young. Almost 2/3 are between the ages of 18 and 34. About a third of them say that their portfolio value is under $2,000. Black African American investors, almost half of them are new investors. They've been in the market less than 2 years. Same with Hispanic investors. 38% say that they've been in the market less than 2 years. This number I find particularly striking. 54%, so over half of new investors say that they're invested in crypto. And the blue bar, you can see that a lot of new investors are getting their information from social media. Are they still investing? Because during that time was a market downturn. 75% of new investors are still in the market, or were still in the market back then. As many people are joining the markets through the purchase of crypto as by opening a traditional investing account. Statistically speaking, these are identical to each other. So not only is it bringing people in overall, but it's also, based on what they're telling us, also bringing them to other parts of the market.
Are those kind of data points, do those surprise you at all?
They don't surprise me. I mean, I think that crypto can be very accessible, especially for young people who are digitally native, who are used to doing things through apps on their phone. I think if you download the Coinbase app or the Kraken app, like they are very user friendly,
Yeah,
and they're very good at providing content to help educate people about the crypto marketplace. And so, I think one of the interesting things is that crypto isn't just a digital asset that goes up and down. It is part of these networks that are the
exactly.
new tech stack for the future internet and the future financial services system. And so to be able to get exposure to that in a way that's relatively easy to do, I think is something that people do understand. And it's translating to kind of like we were talking about earlier, this grassroots political force. It's not just
Right.
the lobbying efforts of the industry or the political activity of the industry. It's the fact that so many everyday people do have, exposure to crypto. They do want to see the promise that these networks have materialize, and they want to see more services that, are working for them, right? There's a lot of problems today we have with some of our financial services and internet companies, and so yeah, no, it doesn't surprise me, and very very encouraging to see those numbers.
This is one of the few areas of investing that there are true communities, whether you're getting into NFTs, you're going into meme coins, or you're getting into traditional, blue chip assets out there. They still have these massive communities that are global. So it's really opening up. And then you look at the opportunity around gaming. There's a lot here culturally that is starting to shift. And with that, I looked at what Kamala Harris is doing, and this is a program that she, of course, has been putting out there. This was an agenda for improving Black entrepreneurs and others to start a business. Part of this will be protect cryptocurrency investments, so Black men who are a big part of this new investor class. Going there and know that their money is safe. I know they're going on that safe concept when in reality it's safe as it is right now. But when you look at her position here and what she has done with the biggest nemesis of crypto being, and I see she, meaning the Biden administration, the biggest nemesis of crypto being Gary Gensler, do you think her not, or the Biden administration not putting more pressure on Gensler is going to come back and be a liability in the end?
I mean, listen, I think we've seen a lot of polling. 1 in 20 voters in swing states considers cryptocurrency an important issue. Poll after poll throughout the spring and summer has shown that this is something that people care about. And so, yeah, I do worry that she is at a disadvantage because she doesn't have a more thoughtful and defined position.
Yeah.
Again, as we said, she's had time restrictions. There's reasons for it, but yeah, I think if we find out that she loses Pennsylvania or Michigan or some of these swing states by a few thousand votes, and that there are actually also a few thousand people who voted solely on crypto, it's going to be Gary Gensler and Elizabeth Warren's fault. I think that they did a huge disservice to the Democratic Party. Fortunately, I think there are a lot of Democrats in office of sound mind that have come up independently and are kind of isolating them and not letting them be kind of the thought leaders for the party anymore, because I do think it puts them at a disadvantage. That being said, though, I do think that if she wins, I think we can get her there. I think there are enough individuals around the country. There's a sophisticated industry. There is a very active sort of crypto advocate class. And if the political environment is ripe, that I think we can get her to the right place. It's just going to take some time.
Well, I think the key there is, Pennsylvania is a big one. I was looking at, I think it was 538, and they were saying if she doesn't win Pennsylvania, it's like a 4% chance that she would take the presidency. So that's a very critical battleground right now, which is why you're seeing Elon Musk spending so much time in Pennsylvania, obviously, and doing some of the antics that he's out there doing. I want to get into your policy summit. This was a clip from last year, and it's one of my favorite people. I want to play it for you.
And a couple people said, whoa, you're talking to the smartest critic of crypto in Congress? So curious to see how that's going to go. And there's a lot of people in the Bitcoin community in particular that are very anti-fractional reserve banking, with the idea this is all of this is on the
Well,
public
that's
ledger.
fine, but like there's flat earthers too. Like it doesn't.
Well, it's true. It's true.
Let's democratize access, but let's not replace that with the appropriate disclosure guidelines. And I think that to me has been where a lot of the political tension has been around this issue.
Well, that's the kind of transparency and disclosures that this allows, because anybody can get up, look on Etherscan or a Block Explorer and see exactly how many tokens have been issued, how many have been minted. We haven't done a good job as an industry of sort of laying out, making that usable information.
Well, I'm going to say something harsh here. That's sort of like saying I own a bat and therefore I'm a baseball player. Pick any cryptocurrency you want. How much is in circulation today? How much of that is being traded on exchange versus off exchange? If it's a stable coin, what is the nature of the reserves? Are those disclosed on a regular basis? You can't answer any of those questions for almost any, like, okay, it's on the blockchain, right? I mean, this has not been a good month for cryptocurrencies, right? Between Hamas, all of this information that North Korea is funding their nuclear weapons program, they can't do that with Web3, right? It scares the dickens out of me when I see smart people saying really stupid things about financial markets. And there's nothing wrong with in an emerging industry of saying we've got some cool things, we've got the beginnings of this, but don't pretend to be JP Morgan.
All right, so I mean, obviously, Casten, not a big proponent, and some of the things we highlighted there were him saying some dumb things about the crypto markets. My question is, do you think he learned anything this past year, and will he be back at the event?
I like to think, we hope so. I think in the last hearing he had, some hostile comments to say as well. But I mean, listen, I think the crypto industry has good answers. Like all the things he's like, it's on the blockchain. It's because he doesn't know how to go and look at a blockchain explorer and see what's there. These are all questions that if we could get in front of a computer with him, we can solve. I think, listen, I mean, I will give him credit for showing up, right? He, like Elizabeth Warren didn't show up. He will show up and tell us what his concerns are. And so I think having that kind of dialogue is important, because then we can go back and be like, all right, how can we package the information in a way that he can see it and experience it and feel it? And so, I do think over time, hopefully his policies can shift and he can understand that, yes, certainly there are certain risks, but like, let's look at the risks that exist in this world and not try to take the solutions from the old world, which is often what happens, and put them on this new system, because it just doesn't work. So it gets a little bit frustrating. These are conversations we have all the time, and there are new policymakers that are coming in all the time, right? We're about to have a bunch of new members of Congress elected. Fortunately, I think a lot of them will have been introduced to crypto already, but again, it's not just a single conversation, it's many of them. And so that's a lot of the work we do at the Blockchain Association, is organizing the industry, putting the content in a format that is easily understood, and going and having those conversations over and over and over, so that when the bills work their way through committees and get to the House floor, people feel confident that they can vote for it because they understand the underlying issues.
I want to play a quick clip for you around what's happening with BRICS, because this is obviously BRICS, their summit was just this week. I think it's going on right now. We did a big video on this, but this is Bill Haggerty talking a little bit about stablecoin legislation. Listen in.
Russia is expected to sign a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty with Iran during this summit. You recently released draft legislation establishing a clear regulatory framework. This builds upon Congressman McHenry's Clarity for Payment Stablecoins Act. Tell us more about this and how this is going to be used.
I've come in and made some adjustments that I think it'll make it easier to get through both bodies. The Biden and Harris administration have done everything they can to destroy that sort of legal certainty. This will begin to chip away at the Democrats' war on cryptocurrency.
Yeah, and do you think we would see this kind of legislation from the current Securities and Exchange Commission chairman, or is this making
Absolutely
the assumption
not.
There's a new SEC chairman?
That the assumption is very clear.
All right, so he's assuming that there's going to be a new SEC person to deal with, and he's assuming that we can possibly, with some tweaking of this bill, get it through both bodies. Likelihood, could that happen? I don't know. I haven't had a chance to see it, but it's good that we're seeing more people getting active in this. Is this typical of DC to do this, kind of try to improve on a bill like that?
Oh yeah. It's when a bill is introduced, that is a starting point. It's very rarely the end point, and
Yeah.
that's part of the process, right? It's you put ideas out there, you get feedback, you make changes, at committee, you can do amendments on the floor. This is how we try to get the optimal policies done. And I do think stablecoin legislation is something that could move before the end of the year. It could get bumped into next year as well, but this is one of those bills that has been discussed and analyzed by Congress going back to 2019. If you recall, when Facebook or then Facebook announced the then Libra project, this was something that Congress held hearings on in both the House and the Senate. We had the president's working group, both in the prior Trump administration and then now in the Biden administration. Both of those presidents' working groups issued reports that said, hey, we have gaps in federal laws, and we need to make sure that we have the appropriate regulation in place. So we really do need Congress to get a bill done. And I do think it's one of those things that, we may be able to see a quick compromise at the end of the year and get it attached to a year-end package if the Congress ends up having a lively and productive lame duck session. It's a little bit hard to know, how many bills are going to be able to get done until we know the results of the election and who's going to control the House and Senate, et cetera.
Do you think that with that stablecoin legislation that it could open up lanes for companies like Ripple? Here's a tweet. They announced this, of course, Ripple going in and really kind of getting into their partners with RLUSD. And if you look at that and the potential of the New York department, what is it, the NYDFS or FSD, that are in a position where they could go in and maybe get this approved on a fast track. Do you think they're just waiting for regulation to occur for that to actually happen?
Yeah, I mean, it's completely possible to issue stablecoins today without that regulation, right? The framework that stablecoin issuers need in the United States at the moment are state money transmitter licenses, but there's probably better ways to do that at the federal level, which is why one of the things that stablecoin legislation is trying to achieve. And so I think having that framework in place and the certainty of knowing if you need to have a federal license or if it's okay to do it with the state license, I think that these are questions that the legislation would ask. But stablecoins are really in the best interest of the U.S. If you look around the world, people want access to U.S. dollars, and they can't always do that from their sort of local bank or local financial institution. But you get these stablecoins that are backed by treasuries and dollars. I mean, these are really reliable investments, that are available in parts of the world that don't always have that. Or
Right.
they're stable. They can keep their money there. They know it's not going to go away. It's going to always be backed by a dollar. And so I think that having that stability is really powerful. And I think it's something that only keeps the dollar stronger. Doesn't make it weaker in any way at all. And so I think that that's something that would be fantastic to see get done this year. And if not, I could see it moving very quickly in the first quarter of next year.
That'll be good. Moving on to the election, betting odds right now still have Trump leading pretty significantly. A lot of people have kind of been, I would say, mostly on the left, that have been kind of complaining that, hey, these predictive markets are not accurate. But here's a line list of just all the different, betting odds data out there beyond the predictive markets. And if you look at Kalshi, who was just obviously just went head-to-head with CFTC and won, they're also showing pretty much the same numbers. When you look at that and you think Polymarket, you look at Kalshi here in the United States, and a lot of these kinds of markets out there, I mean, do you support kind of what's happening in these markets in terms of these trying to understand what's happening in these political races?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that the prediction markets are absolutely fascinating, and I wasn't particularly familiar with them until this election cycle. And I look at Polymarket probably on my phone every 30 minutes. I'm very interested to see where the trends that are going, and I think one of the things that has come up in my conversations with politicians and candidates is that there's some that just don't have an understanding of what they are, right? They represent the odds of an outcome, not necessarily where the votes are cast. And so
Yeah.
I think it's a really powerful tool. It's obviously very different than a traditional poll, but I think it does pick up trends and sentiment faster than we would see, in the normal polling process. And I think it's a tool that I think is absolutely fascinating, and we'll know, right? We'll know on election day if these trends were right. And I know that in Polymarket, the race for Trump and Harris has, I think, like $2 billion on it right now. I mean, these are incredibly liquid markets, and they're not easy to manipulate.
Yeah, it is pretty significant. And the interesting thing is, because Kalshi is a U.S.-based predictive market, they're at 60-40. If you jump over to Polymarket, it's at 61-38. So essentially, they're right within, a margin of error. Of course, the good thing here is it shows some of these swing states, which we've been talking about. I'll zoom in on that for some of you guys. And Trump has started to pull away on a lot of these. So very interesting. That's a good win, I think, in general for the Republicans, but also just for crypto in general. The other thing I wanted to show you was a clip here. This is Rostin Behnam from the CFTC. He was basically kind of coming to a final conclusion on what's happening in these predictive markets. Take a look at this.
I don't know if you've noticed, but there are some elections going on around town, which has also brought some attention to your agency. Could you give us an overview as to sort of where things stand there?
The Commission has been pretty consistent over the past 10 years about its position on these markets. We think they're against the law. And just about a month ago, a district court in D.C. ruled against us and ruled in favor of Kalshi. We subsequently appealed and requested that the D.C. Court of Appeals stay the contract, so essentially prohibit Kalshi from listing the contracts until the court reviews the issues on its merits. The appellate court denied that request for stay, so now the contracts have been listed. So actively trading on a number of exchanges right now. We're going to respect the decision of the judiciary. We're going to certainly appeal it. That will take time, most likely months.
Somewhat admitting defeat there, I think, which by the CFTC, that's a big statement. Interesting, though, the person that was asking that was Chris Brummer, who has been possibly slated here as maybe a candidate for Gary Gensler's job. There's rumors around that. What do you think? Do you think that would be a good move for crypto in general?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Chris Brummer is fantastic. He's a great guy. I think he understands the current laws very well. I think he also understands the direction that the industry is trying to go, and would be a fantastic choice to run the SEC. I think I've seen him in a couple articles on the short list if Harris wins, and so I think he would be fantastic.
And of course, Stand With Crypto is active out there right now. So we continue to tell everybody, if you're still uncertain if your candidate is pro crypto, go over to Stand With Crypto. You guys can learn a lot more about the endorsed candidates that they're backing, but also learn if your own congressman or senator is in the position of a pro crypto stance. So check that out. Of course, if you guys want to check out the Blockchain Association, make sure and visit Kristin's website. We'll put a link down below for you guys on that. Kristin, it's been great having you on. Thank you so much for coming in.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Paul. This has been great, and maybe we can do it again after we see the results of the election.
Yeah, this is going to be huge. It's going to be massive, as they say. All right. Well, thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. We'll chat with you soon. All right, you guys, if you are not in the Diamond Circle, make sure and get in right now. It's one of our own special places for our own members, and it's free. All you have to do is click the link down below. That's going to get you in, and it's going to give you additional content. We do some emails over there for you, additional videos and podcasts. So it's stuff that sometimes does not make it here on the show. So all you have to do is just jump to that link. Follow me out there on X at Paul Barron. We'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.